How are you doing this morning or evening for you, Tony?
Yes, it's evening. It is evening. It's Monday evening where I am. I'm based in the UK, but things are going good. I like a good Monday, and it's the end of September, and so officially into fall. And I always love this time of year. There's so much energy as we approach the end of the year. I feel like this is time to like knock off a whole load of stuff, and that actually sits quite well with what we're talking about today because I feel like as women we have to be mindful of what we say yes to because we're often asked to do things for free. So it kind of like fits in all beautifully. And of course, I'm delighted to be here. So, Jossie, thank you so much for inviting me to talk about a topic I am personally very, very passionate about.
Well, I'm excited to chat about this topic too. And, actually, just what you were saying about the feeling productive and going into the fall, I geek out on the Mel Robbins podcast. I love her podcast. And she actually had an episode, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, about how like September is really the peak for productivity, not January. Like, yes,
Hmm.
January is great for like dreaming big and all that stuff, but the peak for like productivity is like September. And so that really resonated with me.
Yeah, I'd
But
100% agree with that. Like 100%.
yeah, it's like, oh, I have all these things. They still need to get done.
Let's
let's make
do.
it
Let's get
happen.
going. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
All right. Well, we have a few people who are joining in here, so why don't we get started? Yes, I am very excited about our topic today. So, today we're going to chat about why are we still asking women to work for free? This is a topic Tony and I have spoken about on and off over the years,
Hmm.
and it's and something triggered me to like really want to talk about this earlier this year. So I was in a community and I saw a post that really kind of implied that like, women coaches shouldn't like women should really be volunteering their time to coach people and not be paid for it. And it really triggered me. And I was like, wait a second, we really need to talk about like why do we do this? Why do we do this to women? Like, and
Hmm.
especially in this tech industry, right? And I mean, there's certain industries where we do
Hmm.
this, but we don't ask sports coaches to coach for
Hmm.
free, right? So
Well,
why are
so
we asking women?
here's the thing. I view this conversation about coaching for free just being an extension of a broad symptom. It's triggering because you've got a business and I've got a business as a coach as well. But actually, I think this permeates far deeper than that, in that
Oh,
it
yes.
starts with we should mentor each other for free. We should volunteer to do all these things in the community. We should take on all these extra responsibilities at work because we need a woman on this board. We need a woman on this a job interview board, but not taking away our responsibilities. And because we're the only woman in the room, we do it way more than our male colleagues. We don't get a reduction of responsibilities and we don't get more pay. And I think this conversation about being asked to coach other women for free is just an extension of that.
Hmm.
There is an expectation of us as women that we perpetuate as women. I am guilty of this, by the way. I ran a nonprofit for a decade for free. I created it and I ran it for free. And so I'm guilty of perpetuating that. It was a full-time job in addition to my day job. Never got paid a penny. And I this is really it was bad for my career at points. It was good for my career at other times. But there were times when bosses were like, you're not focused at work. What's going on? Because my head was off doing this other thing.
Hmm.
Why do we expect this? Why do we do this to ourselves?
Yeah, and I mean it's a trap, right? Because like the things we're being asked to do, it's not like these aren't important
Of
things,
course,
right?
so
Like,
important. Yeah.
we're being asked to lead ERGs, right? We're being
Hmm.
asked to be on hiring panels. These are all things that improve,
Yes.
inclusion, make the place in one way a better workplace for
Hmm.
women, but yet because we're being not recognized for it, right? Like
Hmm.
I felt, when I joined Tile and the story, right? I told the CEO, I was like, I want to lead your diversity efforts, but I don't want a repeat of what happened at Apple, where I kind of got dinged for running Women at Siri
Yeah.
and for going and teaching girls who code, right? I said, like, I want to be recognized for doing this, right? Like, I
Hmm.
want this to be part of my day job. Does that mean I'm not going to do well at my day-to-day job? No, I am too, but like, I want to be recognized that this is part of what I'm doing. And I think
Hmm.
that's the big problem, right? Is like, this isn't being considered for as, a leadership experience when it
Hmm.
comes to promotions, right? It's not being like, people aren't being paid for doing this extra work. And unfortunately, it means we're kind of just repeating the cycle for
Yes.
future generations, and we're not really breaking down these societal
Yeah.
barriers.
And I mean, I would argue there are some things where somebody needs to do them, and we've both been around long enough, sadly, to know that when DEI efforts, before they were DEIB, when just DEI, before they even started, somebody had to start somewhere, and often it fell to the underrepresented, whether that was a woman, somebody who was Black, somebody who was non-binary, whatever flavor of diversity. Somebody said, this is not good enough, and I'm going to stand up and do something about it. And hats off to them. You and I have both been that person. It's
Hmm.
exhausting and hard work. Somebody needs to do it. And often there's no budget and you're not recognized. But we're now in a different era.
Yep.
We are now in the era where women are actually over mentored. So this whole thing about women need to be mentored and we all need to be mentoring for free. Women are now over mentored to the point of we aren't coached and we aren't advocated for. We're over mentored. Instead, we're told we need more mentoring, when that's not actually true. But we are perpetuating this, saying you've got to mentor other women for free. And if you don't, you're a bad woman. You're not supporting other women. Instead of recognizing our male colleagues are getting coaching.
Hmm.
And our male colleagues are, one, paying for coaching themselves, but two, also asking for it. So why aren't we? Like, one of the things I do is I will give free coaching on how to ask your workplace pay for coaching, because I
Hmm.
believe that is something. It serves me and it serves women,
Yep.
because I just fundamentally believe we all need to know how to advocate for ourselves. That is coaching, it's not mentoring. And so I think by having these conversations, we're under leveling ourselves. We're staying in this
Hmm.
space of this is all we need because this is all we can give. A lot of the other things we're asked to do are very specialist. Coaching is specialist. Job hunting is actually a specialist skill. And so by just asking the token woman to do it for free is a disservice. We need to be fixing the systemic issues underneath instead.
Absolutely. And, you touched on this and I think, I want to talk about this, which is there is a shame, right? Like what really
Mm-hmm. Oh,
triggered
yeah.
me to do this live stream, like I said, was somebody literally being like, "Oh, I don't want to pay for coaching," right? And like, but demanding like, "Oh, but that I really want to get a coach." And it's like, I understand that there are some people that do not have the ability to pay for
Mm-hmm.
coaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Most of the people I'm hanging out with, though, are engineering leaders we all have a level of privilege here in tech. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the women I work with, especially, like, it's not in a place where they can't pay for
Yeah.
something, right? Um, and so I think we also have to touch on the fact that, like, hey, we are in a place of privilege, and like, and then we're just making it worse by kind of enforcing this, like, hey, you shouldn't ask for it, and the
Mm-hmm.
guilt and shame that is
Mm-hmm.
coming with it.
I so that place of privilege, I think, is almost part of the problem here, because when we are in a position of, hey, I've made it to this level, I'm doing really well, I've got a good compensation or salary, although I think in this day and age, our salaries just go straight out of the door, so it often doesn't feel like it, but we are potentially way above average compensation. We just don't feel
Hmm.
it because we're in our little echo chamber.
Right.
Then we're in this position of guilt explicitly around I've got that position. And so when we have guilt, two really many interesting things happen, but two really interesting things in the topic of this happen. Firstly, we tell ourselves we don't deserve it, and therefore we've got to give back enormously. So should everybody else in my position. It's the way you deal with the guilt. You project your own emotions onto other people. So you say, I should give back, everybody else should give back, right?
Hmm.
It's nice to give back, don't get me wrong, but like there comes a point where you're giving too much.
Yes.
And then the second thing that happens is you say, I don't deserve more. So you
Mm-hmm.
say, I don't deserve a coach. That manifests as I'm not going to pay for it. So many of the conversations I have are around not wanting to fork out. They would fork out for their kids, they would fork out for their spouse. But when you dig deep, it's actually they would pay for that for something else, somebody else in their family. But they don't feel they deserve that investment, even though I'm like, but you're the breadwinner. Like, surely investing you in your career is a done deal. And when we then perpetuate that at work and we put the pressure on the other women at work to, hey, you should be mentoring. Hey, have you thought about stepping up for this DEI effort? Well, you don't have the time, you should make the time. We put so much pressure on it. It's that same perpetuation of, but you've got to praise the privilege. I have too, but you do. So why aren't you giving back? And then just keeps the cycle going, as you said.
Yeah. And, because there is kind of that like external shame that comes in,
Mm,
then we start also building internal guilt and shame.
yes.
Even if somebody else isn't explicitly saying so, we're like, oh, I have to do this, right?
Yeah.
Like, I
Hmm.
have to give back. I was having a coaching call recently with a woman, and she was literally telling me, like, all these things she just got asked to volunteer for. And she's like, oh, I have to do this and I have to do this. And
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second, what do you want to do? She just kind of stopped and looked at me like, what do you mean? What do I want to do? I have to give back. I was like, it's okay to give back. I'm not saying like go to the extreme where you never help other people and you never give back, but it's about setting boundaries around that. Like for myself, I like to say, hey, I'll do a certain number of free coaching sessions, or, I'll do X number of free talks a year. And that way, like I have an internal boundary I've set for myself. And that's what I encourage women to do, right? It's not about saying no to everybody, but it's about realizing like you are allowed to say no.
Hmm.
And if somebody else is triggered, that is on them, not on
Yes.
you.
I have a dear friend, Mika Gobig, who is also an executive coach, and she talks about how, as leaders, we need to be more selfish. I mean, she's again talking at women. I don't think this necessarily sometimes does, but doesn't necessarily apply to men as much. But with a cultural expectation of people pleasing, of making everybody else happy, of do for other people that we have as women in the Western culture, we actually, to do leadership well, we have to be selfish, be more selfish than we're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't, we're doing a disservice to our company, to our team, not just to ourselves. Because when you take on too much, and I know this firsthand, this happened to me. I volunteered, or rather, I was volunteered. I had a lot of volunteer stuff that I literally volunteered for, but then I was also volunteered for stuff. And it damaged my ability to do my day job and damaged, therefore, my reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't doing my job, which was bad for business. My team suffered. Everything around me about my day job suffered because I was volunteering on things that the company said that it wanted me to do. But it was volunteer stuff because it wasn't the stuff that impacted the business bottom line.
Right.
So I'm not saying that we shouldn't say yes to stuff, but we need to be so mindful of it. And so we should stop expecting this of each other. I want all of us to stop guilt tripping each other into, you should do that for free because I
Mm-hmm.
did.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what else is going on in that person's life.
Right.
You don't know that they've not got a really sick kid at home and they have zero bandwidth left. You have no idea. So can we stop guilt tripping each other? And maybe that will rub off on ourselves and we stop guilt tripping ourselves as well.
Yes, absolutely. And, you talked about, asking companies to pay for coaching. And I think that is
Mhm.
amazing, right? If a company is willing to invest in a client and a client really wants that, like, I think that's great. But then there's the flip side, which is
Mhm.
I also see women kind of expecting that it is the company's responsibility to be the
Yeah, and it's
one that's
not.
paying for coaching. And it
Mhm.
is not. And then women get upset when the companies aren't investing in them. But really, this goes back to businesses are here to make
To make
money.
money. they're
right?
profitable, right? It's a
And
thing that
like,
drives
let's
things.
be clear, people are changing jobs much more often than they used
Yeah.
to, right? And so companies see this as an ROI too, right?
Hmm.
And I also see from, not every single person, but I also have seen like when somebody invests themselves versus
Hmm.
when a company invests in the coaching, there's a difference in how much dedication and
Yeah.
effort the woman is putting in to the coaching. I see much more success when they're paying for it because they truly feel invested. And I'm not saying that's everybody. I've seen people where the company's paid and they've really gotten a lot of value out of it. And like as a trend, I've definitely seen that.
Yeah, I mean, you and I had this conversation a couple of years ago, in that there is a difference in how we show up. I mean, I've had a few
Hmm.
exceptions to that rule
Yeah.
in both directions. I've had women who pay for themselves who don't take it seriously, and I've had women who have had it paid for by their company who are some of my best clients in terms of like they put the effort in. But most of the time, when it's our own money, we take it incredibly seriously. And you're spot on that there has been a massive drop in companies investing. I've seen this over the last 5 years quite dramatically. 5 years ago, about 75% of the people I work with had something come from their organization. Today, it's about 20.
Hmm.
I think there's several things going on there. I think it was going to happen anyway, because as you say, people are moving jobs. If you're going to move jobs every 2 years, which by the way is so good for your career, as a side note, the women I work with who up level quickly, they're moving regularly, right? It is such
Hmm.
a good way to up level. Don't think it's a bad thing. But if you're doing that, the company kind of knows that they're here to get information out of you. They're here to get your great ideas, your great strategy, whatever it is you bring. But then it's like, bye bye, we're done here. We're parting ways. And so why would they invest in you? I had one lady who was, and I'm picking on particular people here, and I would say the majority of the women I work with are so invested in what they do. But this one woman was really upset when her company asked for her coaching fees back when she left. I was like, well, you were only there for 6 months, so why wouldn't they? Did you take your contract when you signed it? I mean, I totally get that. Like if a company pays for you to go to grad school, for example, there is normally a clause on
Hmm.
payback, right? If
Yep.
you leave early, you pay back the fees. And this is the same. Professional development has changed dramatically. And the other side of it is certainly Josie and I, the kind of coaching we do, we touch on every aspect of your life.
Hmm.
That includes job coaching. So when you need a new role, we support you in that. Why would your company support that?
Right.
Would be one thing I ask. And then the final piece here is men do ask for support, but they'll go out and get support anyway, irrespective of the answer. And we're
Hmm.
holding companies to a different standard because we're women. And as much as I am a true believer in we need to level the playing field, and we are on the back foot as women, there are some things where we're not on the back foot. And I think in many of the roles that you and I work with people on, Josie, there is a gender pay gap, but it's not as big as we think. I mean, it is there, don't get me wrong.
Hmm.
And it's one of the things I'm very passionate about closing. But it isn't paying for coaching for a woman because she's a woman just increases the narrative of women are expensive.
Right.
And so I don't personally, as much as I'm quite happy to play the gender flag at other times, playing the gender flag because of coaching, I don't think serves any of us. And I say that like that's a really big deal for me to say because I do think we need to fix equity in the
Hmm.
workplace, and that means investing in programs that level the playing field. This is not one of them.
Right. Yeah. Because as you said, we help people find other jobs, right?
Hmm.
Why would a company want to pay for that? And also, I'm actually very clear when I set up a corporate contract with somebody where it's like this is confidential, but
Hmm.
there are a number of workplaces who've not agreed to that, right? They
Yeah,
want to
100%.
know what is going on. They want the coach to be checking back in and giving status updates. And
Yeah.
then I feel like I can't truly coach somebody if they don't feel comfortable being vulnerable with me because they
Hmm.
then know. Like that kind of just breaks the whole ability to coach somebody successfully.
completely agree with that. I've actually walked away from contracts where I've been asked to update people on the client, on the individual person I'm coaching. And I've also had a lot of clients come to me for additional coaching. They've got an executive coach through work who coaches the whole executive team. But it's very clear, like that executive coach is going round everybody and then going to the CEO, and
Hmm.
it's just stories. And I'm like, oh, there's no confidentiality. So they come to me for the confidentiality. And there's one particular lady who she worked with me for 4 years. She didn't move in that entire time, but she just didn't feel safe to use
Hmm.
their executive coach, even though it was fully paid for.
Right. Yeah. No, I've same situation, right? Like I've had women work with me because yeah, they're like, I need a coach for myself, you know?
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why I feel it's even more important these days is, because everyone's so much busier, right?
Hmm.
So much more is being expected of everybody. I've
Yes.
also
Yeah.
seen managers have no capacity to be coaching their employees anymore, and they're
Yeah.
not being rewarded for it. Like I literally was talking to a manager, two managers actually last week, where I had the same conversation where they were like, we are not having career and coaching conversations with our employees because that is not where we're being valued, and nobody's having those conversations with us. And am I saying that that's the right way to be doing it in a corporation? No, but like that's kind of what's happening right now. And if you're working 50 hours a week,
Hmm.
like trying to add that on too is not going to happen. So it's even more important for us to be
Hmm.
investing in ourselves now.
And I think the other thing that you and I both know is the further up you go in an organization, the less time that leader has for
Hmm.
professional development. They might coach, but it's coaching specifically on, I've delegated this to you, now get it done,
Hmm.
rather than coaching in a more holistic manner. And they're not going to be coaching you through your communication skills or anything like that. They're going to be coaching you through, you've got a wobble. Let me make sure that that thing I've delegated to you gets done. They're not going to talk to you about executive presence. They're not going to talk to you about communication, thinking on your feet, speaking up in the boardroom. They're not going to do that. The other thing we're seeing is in these layoffs, we're seeing a lot of middle management going who are aspiring leaders aiming to do that coaching. But here's the other hard bit, right? One, they've got less time, as you just said. But two, they don't have experience in coaching. And this drives me nuts when people say to me, "Oh, I coached," and I'm like, "Do you? Do you really?" And as you know, when you came through my coach training program before you started your business, like it's a very different beast coaching. I think so many people think they coach at work and don't. So if you think coaching is something that your manager should do for you, I want to break this to you that no, because they don't have the expertise.
Hmm.
Which actually brings us to something I know you wanted to talk about, which was these small businesses that do the kind of thing that we do, and why I think it's also right. I mean, when I ran my DEI events, I had this as well. People were like, it's a DEI thing. Can you just come and do that for free?
Hmm.
No, like one, I volunteer all my time, but two, I have zero money to come and spend a day with you and take the day off work, get there, fly there, whatever it is, take a day off work and do this for free. When, my expertise is incredibly valuable. I
Oh,
spent decades honing my knowledge in this area. You wouldn't expect an engineer who'd gone to college and studied this to work for free. So why are you expecting somebody who is, you and I have both had corporate careers as executives, which means we understand being an executive, and then we've trained ourselves as coach and women leadership experts. Why should we do this for free, right?
oh, exactly. I mean, it is unfathomable to me that I've had startups with like billion-dollar valuations come and be like, oh, we can't pay you to come talk to our community, but can you come talk to us? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
but I know you have money. Like, so why should I, who again do this as a business? And again, why are you asking any woman to come in, whether they run a
Do it for
business or not? Why are you
free.
asking any woman to come in and do this and give their expertise for free? Because then again, they're propagating the narrative that women, because we're giving back, right? We should be doing good for the world. And it's like, yes, I want to do good for the world, but by giving away my free time, I'm not actually. I'm actually just
Hmm.
reinforcing the negative narratives. And yeah, and I mean, the numbers for small business owners is actually sad. Over 90% of women small business owners make less than six figures. And if you actually look at the revenue for women-owned small businesses versus men-owned small businesses, like the
Hmm.
gap is 34% in like average revenue. Like that is huge. And I mean, that's not just coaches, but like we need to look at this as a
Hmm.
societal thing. Like
Yeah,
we have to stop asking women to
to
do things
work.
for free. Yeah. And so as we're wrapping this up, for anybody who's tuning in, right? Like feel free to post your thoughts on comments and what you enjoyed, but be okay with saying no, right? Like realize, like I said earlier, it is somebody else's guilt if like you get shamed by somebody else, like you don't have to put it on yourself, right? I say I'm a recovering good girl people pleaser, and so sometimes saying no come is hard, right? I recently had this thing where I had a number of people in my life just ask me to help them with things, and I realized I was like, I'm really busy right now. I would usually say yes, but I had to say no. And at first, like the guilt popped in, but I was like, no, I am setting a boundary. I'm not saying no forever. And if they get upset, again, it is not on me. It is not on me. I think we have to remind
Hmm.
ourselves like we are worthy, right? Like we are
100%.
worthy, and so and it is okay. Like saying no is a skill that you need to learn, especially as we coach executives, right? If you want to go up that executive ladder, learning how to say no effectively is one of those key skills you
Hmm.
actually need to learn to succeed in the C-suite. So,
Yeah.
do you have any other closing thoughts you'd like to share with our audience?
I would just urge people to realize this is a societal problem. So if you found yourself a bit triggered by this, like, oh my gosh, this is just two coaches saying that we should pay them, go check yourself on that. I really would. I was, if you'd met me 5 years ago, I felt so guilty about asking money for coaching. And now today I realize like if I'm coaching an executive, it's because they need my executive experience and they need my coaching experience. And I have worked to hone and refine those, and they shouldn't be free.
Hmm.
And I gave too much for free earlier in my career to the point of damaging myself. So if you're feeling triggered by this, go and check yourself, my love. And I say that with so much heart as somebody who took years to get over this and probably did a fair amount of judging herself for others. But go check yourself and then come back and challenge us if you still want to. I'm certainly open to having you send me a message, write in the comments, but send me a message as well. Let's have that conversation. I'm definitely not always right. I feel strongly that we should not be asking women to do stuff for free all the time, but I'm definitely not always right. So come and challenge me, but check yourself first.
Yes, and absolutely. Like, I am happy to chat with people about this conversation as well. Feel free to DM either of us. And, very similar to what Tony said, like, I will lovingly challenge you on these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is, and both of us do this because we want to see the world be a better place and
Mm-hmm.
have more women in the executive roles. Not just because like obviously we run businesses and we need to make money to live, right? But the reason we do this, the reason we're so passionate about this is because we want to see women progressing.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Yes, 100%.
Awesome. Well, I loved having this conversation with you today. Thank you so much for joining me. And for everybody who tuned in, like, yeah, pop in the comments what was your biggest takeaway. And if you have any questions, let us know. Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
for now.